Welcome to LoTech Tuesdays by LoTech and Wild, the podcast for those who live their life unplugged and for those who want to. LoTech and Wild is a podcast brought to you by Valdez Adventure Alliance in Valdez, Alaska. We have guests that we learn from all around the world, and we invite anyone who is interested to come and visit the beauty of Valdez, Alaska. As throughout history, economy, necessity, the need for survival, and a desire to bring improvement to society, invention was born. Some inventions are big, some are small, and some just make our coffee taste better. This week, I had a conversation with Amalia Litsa, owner of Dear Diary Coffeehouse and Bricco Blends. She is an artist, a musician, a cyclist, just a wonderful person to talk to. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation, enjoy this podcast, and reach out to Amalia for some Bricco Blends when you're done.
It's kind of cool to talk to you outside of a cycling context. It's like always weird to see bike friends outside of kits and whatnot.
Yeah, I often don't recognize people, actually. And welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you and to be able to chat with you about all of the amazing things that you're doing. And, you know, cycling is something that linked us initially through the Violet Crown Cycling. I guess it's a Violet Crown Sports Association, technically. And then, you know, and you used to race, or just were you?
Yeah, I did. In 2017, I was on the BC road race team, and then I also was on a mountain bike race team called Mod Cycling, but that wasn't through Violet Crown.
Oh, okay. Cool. Cool. Very fun. Yeah, racing is fun. But yeah, often you don't recognize people when you see them at like events or whatever, parties, or on the street. You could be standing right next to somebody, and because they don't have their kit on, sunglasses, helmets, you know, it's like, oh, I didn't realize, you know. I was having lunch with somebody, and we had arranged to just meet at the place, and because we had just chatted, you know, one of those gas station stops, just chatted like straight on, and yeah, we both passed each other in the restaurant.
Oh, because you didn't even recognize each other.
Totally.
It's true. I feel like cycling and other forms of transportation that are group activities like really unify people, because like when we're all on a group ride and we're all in kits, all we have is conversation because we're wearing a uniform. We all look the same, you know? So then when we meet each other in person, it's like, oh, you're a little bit country. I had no idea.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. Very good point. Yeah. I had friends actually that went to private school, and they would say the same thing, that, you know, you could, you know, kind of disguise yourself a little bit underneath there, or like if, you know, because some of my friends were poor and they felt embarrassed. And so you didn't have that conflict. You know, like, oh, well, these kids are sparkly because they have all the latest fashion. You didn't have that issue at all because everybody was dressed the same.
Yeah. Even with social cycling, people dress down because they're riding a bike. They don't want to mess up their nice clothes.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. So tell me a little bit about what you do and how you got started in this whole thing, because it's a lot. You do a lot.
Yeah, well, so I have a coffee shop called Dear Diary Coffeehouse that I co-own with a business partner. And then I have an oat milk company that I founded on my own. And that's a startup right now.
It's difficult getting off of the ground.
Yeah, tell me about it. So with Dear Diary Coffeehouse, we opened that in April 4th of 2020. Which is perfectly when the city shut down and everyone was told to stay inside. And so that was definitely a struggle, because as a new business, we didn't qualify for any kind of federal relief. However, we still had all the business loans and everything. So we were in this weird position where it felt kind of bad to open business because people were saying, essential stuff only. Well, are we essential? But then our loans were saying, yes, you're essential. You need to try. So we were kind of pushed into that and had the unique experience of earning customers and growing a business through a pandemic. And then Bricco Blends, my oat milk company, kind of grew out of that. So Dear Diary Coffeehouse is a vegan coffee shop. I became very intimately aware with how expensive it is to run a vegan coffee shop, if for no other reason alone. The milk is very expensive. Barista milks are about like close to $12 a gallon, whereas our omnivore fellow coffee shops in the neighborhood, you get to spend like $3 a gallon, maybe $5. So I went down this path of trying to figure out how to make oat milk in-house, and quickly realized that it is extremely messy and time-consuming. So even though oats themselves are super cheap, the labor cost of making oat milk in-house would have made it just infeasible. So then I developed Bricco Blends out of that. It was an hour, I wish. It was a year of formula development, but basically I, had the thought that, oats start off dry, so could there possibly be a way to have all the dry ingredients packaged together, pre-measured, perfectly portioned, such that you have the correct oil and mineral and protein blend to achieve beautiful latte art, because that's very like macro dependent, or like chemically dependent on those things. So could I have a mix that's all the dry ingredients necessary, and then all the barista has to do is add water? And so I did develop that formula, but I realized that a lot of the taste of all the non-dairy milks really comes down to the fat that you use. A lot of the way it performs under steam one comes down to the protein you choose and the fat too, but the fat really influences the flavor a lot, second to like the oats or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I ended up I was using a powdered oil, and I ended up taking that back out of the formula. That way coffee shops could choose their own oil, because it really influences the feel of the steam, the feel of the pour with the latte art, how the oat milk interacts with their espresso. So just choosing their oil, whether they prefer canola, sunflower, grapeseed, or whatever other neutral oil, leaves a lot up to their personal preferences, and it's a pretty easy choice. So that ended up working out. And so that's where I am with it now, is okay, finally we have the recipe developed that coffee shops seem to really like. And at the moment, folks in Austin can go to Barrett's Coffee House on at the intersection of St. John's and Airport, and kind of Lamar, where they all come together. They're right over there, and they're serving up lattes made with Bricco Blends. And they also, I know that they're willing, or I believe they're willing to sell customers Bricco Blends by the gram too, if they want to make oat milk at home. But if you wanted to try a latte, that would be a great place to go for that.
Interesting. And so do you have some sort of background in like chemistry, or
Yes.
I mean, how did you even think I'm going to make, powdered oat milk? And then just the idea of pulling things like the oils out, and making it available to a variety of different oils is just, how long did this take you?
I mean, it took a year of iteration, sometimes with more or less focus, because I also have Dear Diary to work.
That does not seem like a lot of time to have come up with this sort of formula and creation.
Yeah. Well, thanks. We'll go with that. I felt like it was forever. Now, my background is in product design. So I I was a product designer in the tech space for over a decade. I mean, I was in tech for over 15 years, but chiefly product design was, just maybe the last 10 years of that.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the reasons I left tech is I had been dreaming of opening a coffee shop since college because I always belonged to art groups that met up at coffee shops. And I just loved that experience and that like structured way of making friends. Like as a shy person, I needed that. So I wanted to create that environment and effectively like produce this friend trap for myself. Like I'm a friend spider trying to catch friends in my friend web, and the coffee shop is that web. So there was like always this idea that I would own a coffee shop, but then I kind of got into product design because design is what I was good at and it paid the bills. I just kind of pursued the career that was suited to my skills at the time. But by the time I could afford to invest in a coffee shop and leave tech, I had developed my product design knowledge. And so Bricco Blends really is a marriage of the two because I'm just taking the same principles from product design and applying that towards developing the formula. And even though I don't have a chemistry background, I can read papers and I can research online, but more importantly, I can relentlessly iterate and collect feedback and go back to the drawing board and try to fix it. So like really, I think an understanding of the product design, product innovation, go-to-market process is what helped me with this, given that I don't have a chemistry background.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. What a project. And so part of it grew out of wanting to cut costs. And then another part of it sounds like it has to do with your love of environmental friendly products.
Oh, dang. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. You're good. Yeah. So this was kind of an accidental outcome. I was initially motivated to develop the barista powdered oat milk because of cost, like you said. But I soon realized that one of the main reasons it cuts on cost is actually shipping. The fact that liquid isn't added till the very end. Plus, a powdered product without water takes up less space than a liquid product. So there kind of emerged out of just the product itself an opportunity to package it in compostable craft bags because the barista milks that come in Tetra Pak cartons come packaged that way because they're pasteurized and they have to be that way. They're liquid. But without the liquid in the equation, there's no reason not to get creative with packaging. And the most cost-effective, compostable, eco-friendly packaging I found was actually 2-pound coffee bags. So that's what I'm packaging Bricco Blends in now. And they take up 1/6 or less of the space that the conventional Tetra Paks do. Tetra Paks aren't even recyclable in Austin. These you can throw into the compost with your coffee grounds. So that had a huge secondary kind of accidental benefit that kind of turned Bricco Blends into a mission because at first it was just a cost savings thing. But whenever I realized that, there's a huge environmental impact that it could have, then it was like, well, geez, this is my calling. I can't be hit by a bus because this is my purpose in life. I have to keep Tetra Paks out of the landfill. And the crazy thing is the scale of that. So I interviewed different coffee shop owners and kind of determined that on average, coffee shops in Austin go through about 120 quarts of oat milk every week. That's just oat milk. And that's not just vegan, that's just generic, general coffee shops. And so when you think every coffee shop in Austin is throwing at least 120 Tetra Paks in the landfill every week,
Yeah.
and then you multiply that by the roughly 600 coffee shops and restaurants that serve espresso in the Austin area,
Yeah.
then you get up to around 6 million Tetra Paks generated by coffee shops and thrown in the landfill every year. And so the exciting thing to me about serving businesses is I have it's such a great channel, such an effective way to reduce waste for the most people. Because if I can convert one business, if just one coffee shop switches to Bricco Blends, then already just with them alone, I've saved over 2,000 Tetra Paks from the landfill. Whereas if I'm trying to hit up individual consumers, it's a lot more effort to do maybe less good. So yeah, just the scale of working with business and offering the service is really exciting to me.
That's interesting. Wow. Yeah, very interesting. And have you seen like so like the MCTs have been very popular lately, and those are kind of like dry creamers, that are sent in like flat packs. And then my other question, that doesn't sound like a question, but the question is, was that a model? And then the other question, I guess, is what is the liner of your packaging if it's compostable?
Yeah, these are great questions. So by MCT, do you mean the MCT oil, like that keto multi-chain triglyceride oil?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So MCT oil and any oil can be powdered through a microencapsulation process. And so what happens is some factory with a spray dryer, which is basically kind of like a big cylinder with a hair dryer plugged into it. That's kind of how I envision it. It's blowing hot air around. Yeah. Or like one of those like cabinets that you step into and money is blowing around. It's kind of like that, but hot. So they'll put the oil or the MCT or whatever in that, and they'll basically blow the oil around with some uh, some powder that can encapsulate each oil droplet, and typically they'll either use maltodextrin or acacia gum fiber. And so each little oil droplet is encapsulated in powder. And so then you have a powdered oil. And like home gastronomy chefs or fancy chefs do this at home too by just like, stirring oil and maltodextrin together. However, with the use of those like spray dryers, they can have a much higher percentage of oil. They can have like 70% of the powder actually be oil, as opposed to doing it at home. You need like 70% of the powder to be the maltodextrin or whatever, and only 30 is oil. So it's way more efficient to purchase it from a processing plant. So that's how they're powdering anything. And I did try MCT. And that is used in creamer, you're right. The challenge with MCT is it doesn't encourage foam at all. So, and my product is a barista product, so it just failed miserably when I used MCT. And the truth is every oil has its own little molecular composition, its own little like acids, like, this is, you'll see like hyoleic acid or whatever. Sure. Fatty acids, I guess. And so that's why the type of oil you use will affect the foam, because maybe you know this, but for the benefit of your listeners that are like, yes, Litsa, please go deeper into this. The reason why there's milk foam at all is because the little oils are hydrophobic, so they're like, go away, water. And the proteins are hydrophilic. They're like, oh, I love you, water. And so what happens when you introduce air with the steam wand is the oils are like, oh my God, air. Yes, thank you. And they'll kind of surround the air. And the proteins are like, no, let me at the air. And so they'll like create this structure around that bubble. And so the oil is helping to keep the bubble stabilized, whereas the protein is making the bubble possible at all, kind of. And so that's why the choice of oil matters a whole lot. But for whatever reason, MCT, and if I were an actual food scientist, I would know it why. But MCT just does not like to help out with bubble formation at all.
Yeah. I get Laird's superfood, and it's probably going to take me a really long time to go through it, honestly, because it doesn't, I like my coffee to look like kind of creamy, you know what I mean? And like, it doesn't do that, but I do, appreciate like the little bit of extra from the coconut. And I was curious about the ingredients. And so it's coconut milk powder. And so that's probably because they're using the ingredient name coconut milk powder, it's probably already processed by the time it gets to the package, right?
Yeah, so I'm not looking
it's probably
at
already gone
myself.
through that dryer process.
Oh yes, yeah, you're right about that. And who knows, like who knows exactly if they have MCT, that is a whole separate thing that needs to be created separate from the coconut milk in general. I think that would be an added thing. And coconuts and palm are like two sources of MCT. So, but the thing about Laird's and all the other powdered non-dairy beverages I found online so far are not formulating around the needs of baristas. So part of the reason it took me a whole year is because, okay, well, I need Bricco Blends to whiten coffee. What causes the whitening?
Right.
I need it to not separate after you make it. If you make oat milk at home, it's going to separate the solids and liquids. So I need all those solids to be just suspended all the time. I can't let sediment form at the bottom of your oat milk. Like there were just all these, in addition to producing gorgeous latte foam, there were all these other ways that I wanted the oat milk to perform.
Well, I can't believe you're not a chemist. I mean, it's a lot. That is a lot.
It was. It was just like a lot of reading and trying out stuff that I read. But it was really fun too.
I bet it was fun. I bet it was fun, but I bet it was expensive too. Like I remember I went through like a dashi experimentation phase, and like just the cost of ingredients alone was like, I couldn't believe it, much less the time, because I wanted to make vegan dashi,
Oh.
Yeah. And
we need to be friends forever. I love that you love experimenting, vegan experiments.
Oh my gosh, it was so expensive. I probably, spent like $200 or $400 that month, just on ingredients alone. And then the time, because you have to let it simmer for so long. And I was reading that like, some of these folks, they were using bones. So I thought, well, I'm not going to have to, I'm not using bones. So I shouldn't have to, process the food that long and let it simmer on, that long. So we're talking about like 12, 14, 18 hours. This is talking about brisket time here,
Yeah.
And, but you just come out with a flat tasting broth. It doesn't pull out it doesn't break down the vegetable as much. I mean, it seems obvious, but
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and if you were trying to make a commercial version, you would be like, all right, well, I guess I'll spend another 36 hours on the next batch,
Yes.
and just iterate. Well, yeah. So it was expensive to get started, but not compared to opening a coffee shop. Like that was a real feat. But one of the things that was time consuming was just procuring all of these ingredients. And, like if I'm reading about MCT and I want to try that, okay, well, where am I going to find that? And where am I going to find,
Yeah.
and like, where am I going to find a source of that one day I could purchase in bulk too? So, yeah, you're right.
Are these Bricco Blends available for consumer purchase also, by the way?
Yes. So you caught me at the very beginning of my launch.
Nice.
So, right now, Barrett's Coffee is using Bricco Blends in their lattes. I believe that they would sell customers Bricco Blends by the gram if they want, because they asked me about that, and I said yes. So I assume that they're going that direction. And then I have Bricco Blends available for purchase on my website, briccoblends.com. However, right now I just have one product up there. It's just one 1,500 gram bag that yields 3 gallons of oat milk, which might be kind of a lot for consumers. That's what I'm selling coffee shops, but just for people at home, maybe they don't want to spend that much all at once. So I'm working on building out the rest of my e-commerce catalog, but truthfully, direct to consumer isn't my main thing. I'll always have Bricco Blends available to consumer on my website just so it is available, but my primary customer is coffee shops, and my goal is, or my vision is, for one day coffee shops to be the place that conscious consumers go for like fresh, locally made oat milk or oat milk powder or whatever. I mean, when you think about it, coffee shops are really milk shops. Most, like at Dear Diary and most other coffee shops, the number one product sold is lattes. Lattes are 8 ounces of milk and just 2 little ounces of espresso, like being like the smallest latte people sell. So it's, baristas are really master oat or master milk people. Like they work with milk all day long. No one understands milk as much as a barista, even as much as coffee. So I think by giving coffee shops a way to make their own oat milk in-house, I think that could disrupt the market a little bit. One thing, I'm going to throw numbers at you because numbers are fun, but between September of 2019 and September of 2020, grocery store refrigerated oat milk sales went up by 350%, and the shelf-stable little Tetra Pak oat milks in the grocery stores, the sales of those went up, I think, 120%. Either way, oat milk sales have just absolutely climbed astronomically.
Yeah.
And you can see all these new oat milk brands, all of these major brands that already have a foot in all the grocery stores are like, but I guess we're doing oat milk now. Like you see Chobani, they were always in the yogurt lane. Now they're in the milk lane, So it's great. It's good that it's so popular and there's more choice for consumers, but small businesses they're just being dragged along. They're not benefiting from this huge surge in the popularity of oat milk. They're not capitalizing on that. So whenever I said that plant milks cost $10, $12 a gallon, well, you think of all these little omnivore coffee shops that have based all of their latte pricing on the popularity of cow milk, $3 to $5 a gallon. Well, with all these customers coming in asking for oat milk, they're fine because they're doing like 50-cent upcharge or 75-cent upcharge or whatever for good reason. So I guess in that sense, they might be capitalizing on that if their upcharge indeed like makes oat milk lattes a little more lucrative for them than the cow milk lattes. But at some point, whenever non-dairy milks become preferred over cow milks, and that's happening in Austin at a lot of coffee shops, then there's kind of well, actually our lattes are just really expensive at the end of the day, if all the consumers are preferring the plant milk. So at vegan coffee shops like Dear Diary, we weren't benefiting from the popularity of oat milk at all, because that's the most expensive of the plant milks that we buy from our distributor. So it was kind of crushing us. It's like, are you sure you guys don't like soy? Because price wise, we much prefer that, you know? So I think Bricco Blends could be a solution for coffee shops that find that a lot of their customer base prefers oat milk. Since it's made in-house, they can kind of name their price. I think it's just good for small business. Like, in addition to being good for the environment, I like the idea of it being really good for little coffee shop owners like myself and my business partner.
Yeah. You have a couple of products though. Do you roast coffee? You roast your own coffees? I noticed that some of the labels, I love it too, that the labels are all like some of them are like porch party, or some of them are like stump jumper or something, or like a bike, you know, they're like cycling oriented. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that was the one I had gotten. It has a bike on it. I'm buying it.
That was the idea. A bike and a dog. It's guaranteed to sell.
Right?
Yes. So Dear Diary Coffeehouse, one of our cost-saving tactics during the pandemic was to stop purchasing coffee from a third party and start roasting our own. So we joined a co-op where us and other small coffee shops share an oven. And so my business partner, Josh Adrian, he's the one that kind of manages the coffee roasting program. However, the packaging, that's all my illustrations. Thus, we got the cyclist in there, and that cyclist is Lisa Waters, like one of my mountain bike, like mod cycling mountain bike teammates. And then the dog is just a random dog.
No, it works. That's great. You can tell packaging design is definitely a forte of yours for sure. Yeah. And your illustrations are wonderful. When we met actually for the first time at your secret show, you know, and I got to see some of your drawings, I was just blown away. It was just absolutely lovely.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I feel fortunate that I have that skill. With Bricco Blends, I actually got the help of Philip Niemeyer. Gosh, I don't Nei. I don't know.
Niemeyer,
sorry,
maybe.
Niemeyer.
Maybe.
I'm sorry, Bella. Okay, so he owns the Northern Southern Gallery, and Northern Southern used to be located right by Dear Diary. So whenever I was doing my Bricco Blends branding, I knew that like I don't have money to pay people for Bricco Blends right now. This is all out of pocket. So I'm basically just doing all the things, like the branding and the web and everything. It's the company of one person right now. But even being a company of one, I've learned from my years in product design that it's a bad idea to work in a vacuum. So Philip was so kind and agreed to kind of mentor me through that branding process. So I just needed someone to be a coach, you know, like, and someone to be on the hook to, like, to make promises to and not let down. So he didn't care whether I showed him the new draft of the logo by next Thursday, but I needed to feel like I promised someone to hold myself to that deadline. So the Bricco Blends branding is my work, but like going and seeking kind of like the thumbs up or feedback of a mentor. And so he was that mentor, which I think is cool. I love anytime Dear Diary, or I guess in this case, Bricco Blends, gets to collaborate with other small businesses. And Dear Diary does a heck of a ton of that. I should say, though, to Josh's credit, Dear Diary's branding is all Josh's.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very fun. I like the eye. And I mean, so I was in there on Sunday for the open mic. And I mean, and I've been in there before. You personally have sold me coffee, although you might not have recognized me.
Probably with the mask.
Yeah. And like the community aspect of it, whether it's like the journals that are in there, participating in things like, what is the East Art Gallery tour?
Yeah. The East
All of the
Boston
art that's on the walls. I've met other local bakers, I think, set up little tables inside there, as well as other local artists set up tables inside there. So, I mean, it's really, it's nice to have the location so that you can do things like that.
Yes.
And that builds.
That saved us during the pandemic. So 2020 was absolutely terrifying. I personally had a lot to lose because I had sold my house and in order to invest in Dear Diary, and I purchased the little unit we're in, and so it's like, wow, I had so much to lose. So I was scared, hopeless.
Yes. I get
it. Yes. So during the pandemic, it was hard because we were earning customers at a time when people felt weird about exploring outside of their neighborhood. So we were it's kind of dependent on our neighborhood dog walkers to be our entire customer base. And so since we couldn't be open past 2, we just didn't have enough foot traffic to afford to keep the lights on past 2. Mm-hmm. I had to find other revenue. So a couple things that I did was sublease our dining room, which we couldn't use because capacity restrictions, people didn't feel safe dining indoors. So it's like, okay, we have this empty dining room. So in 2020, we used that as like a consignment shop for artists. Nice. We invited cottage bakers to come in and basically have bake sales out of there. And so I was making money for the shop just through either consignment or leasing the space. And it was mutually beneficial because so many programs were shut down that it gave all these other like micro business owners a place they could conduct business too. And it just felt so, like I was talking before about how Dear Diary is my friend web.
Yes.
I got to meet so many people that way.
That's fantastic.
I would like to, so you had mentioned like you like the eye. So Dear Diary's window vinyl is like an eye and rain and cups, that whole like kind of crying coffee thunderstorm motif. That actually came from a local designer named Zach Weiland, and he was inspired by Josh's partner's wall that she painted in their living room. So Josh's partner Shelby, who was the architect for Dear Diary when we built out the space, she painted their living room wall with this kind of repeating pattern mural of open and closed eyes. And Dear Diary looks like their living room, to be honest. And then Zach Weiland, a really awesome designer in town, product designer as well, he kind of took that, and it was the inspiration for that kind of thunderstorm motif that is now represented in our window vinyl. And then whenever I do illustrations for the shop, I like that motif so much that I try to incorporate it where I can. I think it's kind of neat. But I wanted to give Zach credit, since I had said all the branding is Josh's. Most 99.9% is Josh's.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah. No, that works. And then also with regards to the space and stuff, I think that leasing the space and sharing the space is a very creative way to do a lot of things. And it does include the money, but it also does include the friend web. And then you guys are fortunate enough to have the outside patio space where people can go and sit too. So
yeah,
was that a whole other story? Because I don't remember that being there at first. And then we all came and rode over there, and it was like, oh, now open, there's this outdoor patio space. So I was like, oh, cool,
Yeah, so that has been a whole journey. So during the pandemic, we didn't have any kind of indoor dining. We were takeout only, and so we actually leased the patio directly across the street from us that at the time belonged to the liquor store. And then when the liquor store, that is a old family, that those three buildings, auto shop, liquor store, and what was the Rosewood acupuncture shop.
Mm-hmm.
That whole block, they established those businesses in like the 70s or something. So owned by an elderly man with grown children. And so they ended up selling that whole property to a developer. And when they did so, we basically had to vacate the patio. But fortunately, Mission Possible and Recovery ATX, they're kind of a church, a drug and alcohol dependency center. And they have that beautiful patio with the lily pond and things like that. And so they allowed us to move our tables over there. However, that was awesome. Austin Studio Tour was amazing. Having all the bands out there and things was super fun. Having our meetups was super fun. Like all those things are the part of the vision that I wanted. But at the end of the day, we looked at the numbers, and our customer traffic after 4 p.m. is still so low that we ended up having to cut our hours again.
I see.
So now we close at 4 during the weekend, at 7 on the weekend, which really puts a damper on the meetups and things like that. But what I'm kind of thinking is, I don't think Dear Diary is Dear Diary without community events.
Yeah.
So I think we'll still do community events, but when we do, I'll just talk to Mission Possible and ask, how we might use the space, kind of a la carte.
Yeah, good compromise. I noticed also that you guys now have tap handles, so that could maybe help with the whole after 4.
That's what we thought. we thought that, so one of Josh's visions going in was he wanted Dear Diary to be a place where people like played board games and got local craft beer, and it kind of doubled as a pub, sort of.
Sure. Like that place that's over there on 5th or 6th, 5th, on 5th, that coffee shop that's over there, what the heck is it called?
Oh, like Native Hostel?
No, it's like well, now Native Hostel and the coffee shop that I'm thinking of is got like
Brew and Brew?
Brew and Brew, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Brew and Brew. Because I mean they have they have a lot of tap handles. And and then I always knew them or associated them as a coffee shop. So, but they also do seem to get a good amount of foot traffic. I don't know when they close, or anything like that. But I bet that also because you're located at 12th and Chacon, is it Chacon?
Mm-hmm.
There's, it's still kind of a developing area a little bit, under much controversy probably also. And so, but, you've made it a destination space. So people can have meetups there and, use it as a place. I see a lot of like rides that seem to start or end there. So I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, that was, Violet Crown had their monthly meetings at our patio.
Yeah.
Now we don't have a patio anymore. It kills me, but I think it. I don't know. I have
indoor seating now. You have the indoor seating. Because when I was there on Sunday, I mean, there was a good handful of people that were in there. I mean, it seemed like all of the tables were pretty much full.
Yeah. So whenever during our hours, like basically between 8 and 2, we have great traffic, butts and seats, everything's fine. And then there's this crazy fall off. And I think part of it, I think there's several reasons, and these are all theories, of course, but 12th and Chacon was a bunch of little bars, and they shut down during the pandemic, and they were shut down all of 2020. Not all of them have reopened yet. So 12th and Chacon was pretty dead all through the pandemic. Whereas down in like the Holly neighborhood, Fifth Street, that was really vibrant. Like Lazarus, for example, was like, awesome pandemic. Look at all this outdoor seating. Like they did great. So I think 12th and Chacon is very much a neighborhood area, not so much a tourist area. So the pandemic was just very different for it. And then two, kind of related to that, is when we opened, all of our customers were neighborhood dog walkers, and we were entirely takeout, and people didn't feel comfortable buying beer at Dear Diary for takeout. So we established ourselves, for better or for worse, as a coffee shop first. And I think all of our customers are trained to think of us that way. So perhaps through lots of marketing and like aggressively trying to book events, we could retrain people to think of us more as like a evening hangout pub type of thing. But also Josh and I had a decision to make. I think probably that would fall on me, since historically I've been the instigator of events. But right now I have an oat milk product to launch and all these Tetra packs to keep out of the landfill. So I don't think it will never happen, but right now, priority-wise, I'm just trying to get the oat milk off the ground.
Gotcha. Well, I'm happy to help in any way that I possibly can. Hopefully the podcast will help. And then, we certainly will put links to the website and speak about what it is that you're doing. Is the vegan aspect of the coffee shop also an environmental result?
Yeah, so it's so deeply ironic. That's what I learned with Bricco Blends, because Oatly put out this report, just listing numerically with statistics how much more environmentally friendly oat milk is than cow milk. So that's undisputed. But when you take that oat milk and package it in an unrecyclable container, that's layers and layers of material. It's like, well, so I think Bricco Blends truly is environmentally better. I think plant milks packaged in Tetra packs, I don't know. They're probably not. I don't know. Maybe they're the same. That's a difficult comparison. And then you have plant milks packaged in just like you had asked about the lining, like lined cartons that are refrigerated. I think those are probably recyclable. So I don't know. The vegan thing, for me, it's more ethical. I just feel sorry for animals, and I don't want any little creature to suffer on my account. And so therefore, I personally would feel very, very guilty if I were selling milk from cows, like animal milk. And then whenever it comes to environmental impact, I think Bricco Blends will help make that answer be yes. Like the vegan coffee shop is more environmentally friendly. And then also too, Dear Diary buys compostable packaging and things like that. And I think you'll notice, this is like some inside intel, but I think you'll notice more and more coffee shops in Austin and the United States probably go more eco-friendly, in part because of supply chain issues. So a lot of the like mass-produced plastic and plastic-lined cups shipped over from China are caught at port. They're less available. And so a lot of shops are switching over to the environmentally friendly takeout ware because it's more available. And while they're at it, they're like, well, we should make this a thing. We should try to be environmentally friendly in general. So the supply chain issues that coffee shops and restaurants have been facing has had like a parallel accidental effect of prompting some establishments to be more environmentally friendly.
Sure. Yeah. It is, it kills me though that it's more expensive. Like it just has always killed me, because it's like you are doing something that you think that is better. And you would think on a lot of levels that like, oh, well, this is using less, and so then why is it more expensive? It just, and I think the first time I went like vegan or vegetarian, I was 8. And then I went vegan when I was like schooled by some vegetarian people, in the area, that they believed that there was no difference between vegetarian and vegan. If you're not vegan, you're not a vegetarian. So then I was like, okay, well, I'll be a vegan. And so, a lot of the times I was eating things that were, really bean based. And, even still, I was like, should be cheaper. Like, why is this so much more expensive? When has got less travel involved, it's got less processing involved and all of these things. So, I mean, it really has been an effort. And I was talking about this to one of my kids the other day that, you think that these pennies in a jar aren't adding up. But, when I look at the vegans and vegetarian, that movement, in 1980 or, 1987 versus 2021, I mean, like, social media is flux with it. People are talking about it. People are talking about it so much. Omnivores are angry about it. I mean, that right there is like a sure sign that, something is going on. And I spent some time, I've always been very, like, my dad owned a restaurant. My mom was an amazing cook. And so I spent some time, like, really, like, wanting to be in commercial kitchens. And so I did that. And I will tell you that they are downright vocal. They are like, if, you had thin skin and you walked in there to work and you happen to be a vegan or vegetarian, you are in trouble. You're gonna get an earful of all of the things that people could possibly say, even like, oh, look at this phone case. Oh, it must belong to a vegan. I mean, it's just like totally ridiculous things. So, I mean, it's different than it was back then. Back, in the 80s, I couldn't find things to eat. You know what I mean? It was going to be all, vegetables, just whole foods. You're going to learn about nutrition because you've got to figure out what your amino acids are going to be. You got to figure out where you're going to get your B12, whatever. These days, people are producing these things. It's just amazing to me that you can go to a coffee shop that is a vegan coffee shop that isn't some weird eccentric. You walk in and everybody's like, oh, like they're just emaciated, like, oh, how can I help you? I'm strange. It's like this beautiful, colorful, vibrant environment, with art. And yeah, I love the giant chameleon painting that's on the wall over there now. And it's just fantastic. And, so LoTech and Wild, this podcast is sort of based out of Valdez, Alaska. And I noticed also in that community, in the Valdez community, they have a lot of partnering with like the artists, lots of fantastic local artists and, writers or community members, but they have like these little art shows, possibly bake sales, and things like that. But even in like the breweries, and coffee shops and stuff like that. And it really does make a difference. I mean, because first of all, there is such a thing as a starving artist. It is really hard, when you're like wrapping metal to make your jewelry or whatever, which I used to do that actually. That was like my thing. I would go to, Grateful Dead parking lots and I'd have my little wrapped, metal with the crystals and stuff like that. And so then you spend hours and hours and hours doing that and you have to sell it for, like $5. You better sell a lot of those earrings because it's a lot of effort that goes into it. So honoring these artists by providing a space is invaluable. It is just really, it's just fantastic,
Awesome.
Yeah. So I appreciate
well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thanks for calling that out. It is an absolute pleasure. It feels good.
I bet it does. So that's wonderful. last question, did you start riding bikes for environmental reasons at all? Or are you still riding bikes or like, where are you with that?
Yeah, so I think it's the sort of thing where I rode bikes for environmental reasons, but
Mhm.
also I didn't really have a choice. So I had to take pride in my lifestyle, you
Cool.
know? So
Yeah.
I started like riding and didn't have a car when I moved to Austin. I was in college and I didn't have much money. So it's like, when I'm shopping at thrift stores for environmental reasons, I'm riding a bike for environmental reasons. I'm basically not a consumer for environmental reasons, slash, I can't be a consumer, you
Right,
know?
right,
So I think that was part of it. I think that might be true for a lot of people. And then I still ride bikes, but my relationship to cycling has changed a lot.
right.
Whenever I was in college, whenever I got my first commuter bike, and cycling was just transportation, and I rarely left my neighborhood. So riding 12 miles in a day felt like a whole lot back then, and I
Sure.
wasn't aware of other types of cycling at all. And then, and even whenever I got into social cycling, I
Yes.
wasn't really aware. And then I met a friend that introduced me to mountain biking, and that's the first time it clicked for me. Oh, different bikes allow you to have different types of fun, and you
Yeah.
can't mountain bike without a mountain bike. It's its own thing. So that's what got me into. I just became obsessed, rode more and more. I was introduced to group riding around the same time, and so then the idea of doing cycling for fitness or as a way to meditate or whatever came much later, like came around 2016, and I
Okay.
still do it.
Yes. Yeah. Very cool. Yes. I love that. And so, yeah, there are so many different forms like bikes and reasons and like forms of cycling. And, I love all of them. And I think that, when I thought about like, gosh, how many pounds of carbon dioxide I'm keeping out of the environment just by riding my bicycle all around. I thought that's amazing, and then yeah, so it does put it all in perspective when you ride 12 miles versus like somebody that just got back from like a 65 or 85 mile, like for fitness ride, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you know.
Yes.
So I guess riding, so for me it's riding 10 or 12 miles to get to Dear Diary. And
Mm-hmm.
then, if a ride started from Dear Diary and ended at Dear Diary and it was a 50-mile ride, then I'm getting a good 75 miles in, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's kind of like more in my past, I would say right now, like, you know what I mean? So I've definitely got a bunch of centuries under my belt and things like that, but right now I'm really focused on just riding bikes for fun. We just got our first car after 7 years. I just bought my
Wow.
first car. So I've been riding bikes solely and taking public transportation more rarely. Um, uh, than I have, than anything else. So partially, and I will admit this, like when I first moved to Austin, for example, I didn't know how to put my bicycle on the bus. And
Uh-huh.
so then for a whole year, I just avoided that because I didn't know how to put my bike on the bus. And then,
Wow.
yeah. And then I did a video for Cap Metro, a safety video. And then I learned how to put my bike on a bus. And so then I started doing it out of novelty, but then I would be in traffic in like not moving, and my bike is right there at the front of the bus. So then after a while I just started not doing that either because I could get there faster just riding my bike, you know so
I
and
feel
then
the same way.
yeah.
We actually have a pretty great bus system. People like to complain, but it's just our culture. We're comparing
Sure.
buses to cars here, but it's an unfair comparison. Like if you go to New York, the buses aren't like
No.
so lightning, amazing, different than
But they
here.
have the
It's just
rail.
your,
They have
yeah,
the
well, they
subway.
have the subway, but whenever I was there, one thing that really struck me was I was used to thinking of Bushwick as being 40 minutes away from Gowanus, where I live. Bushwick's only 3 miles away, but when you're in a
Public
area,
transportation. Yeah.
yeah, you just start thinking in terms of time, and you
Yes.
let go of the physical as the crow flies, and just accept the travel time as being the distance, so to
Same.
speak. And
Yeah.
the same is true in Austin when you're dependent on public transit. You just orient that way. And our public transit is so inexpensive. Our day
It
pass is only
is.
like $250 or something
Yeah.
like that right now. And you really can't complain. But I would agree, as a cyclist, it is easier and more fun
It
to
is.
get
It's so
places
fun.
by bike. Yeah.
Yeah. It takes a little bit of effort. It's fun to go down the hill. It takes a little bit more effort to go up the hills. But I mean, you can like pat yourself on the back after you do it. Like, yes, I did it. I got up that big hill. And there are quite a bit of
It
hills.
does feel good.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and too, like I used to, so I had that a few years of carlessness. Then I just had a motorcycle. I was like, I'm a single serve person. I'll have a
Nice.
single serve vehicle, and I
Yeah.
commuted that way for a while. But then I really like being my own engine. So when I sold the motorcycle when I moved to New York, and whenever I came back, I didn't replace it because I have no desire now. Like I scratched that itch with cycling. It is
Yeah.
more environmentally friendly. I still get to be outside, but I'm my own engine. I can take pride in it. There's something to that.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. I'm so excited to have just bought my first fat bike, probably about like 4 months ago, something like that. After I got back from the Fat Bike Bash in Valdez, I got back and I always wanted one. I had ridden one before, and I almost bought it, and then I think I ended up buying like an adventure bike or something. And then so I had such a great time on the fat bike. Coincidentally, like the stars aligned and somebody had moved here who was selling a fat bike. So I got it, and I've been riding it on the trails out here, and it's just fantastic. And so we're coming back around now too. April 2022, we're going to have a fat bike festival, fat bike bash back up in Valdez.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's going to be, I can't wait because so the fat bikes are kind of its own suspension on like the rocks and things like that we have around here. But what I didn't realize is that on packed snow, you can kind of float over the snow. And so it's just perfect. And so we've got like a 5 fun mile ride for families and stuff like that, a 10 mile and a 20 mile cross country around icebergs in a glacier lake.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm
That
really
sounds
excited.
incredible.
Yeah.
You'll have to take your fat bike out to Big Bend and ride on the sand.
I love Big Bend. I'm so sad that the Chihuahua Desert Festival isn't happening anymore because that was such a blast. But some friends of mine just went bike packing out in Big Bend Ranch State Park, and that looked like, I think they did like 4 days or something like that. Whereas I just camped in Lajitas and then went out on day rides every day. Oh my God, it's incredible. It's so beautiful. You like Big Bend?
I grew up in West Texas.
Oh.
So I'm more of a like, oh, trees. Like I get amazed by trees. So and Big Bend doesn't have the same effect on me as like forest with tall trees do. Because here, like all of our trees are little scraggle trees,
They are
bush size, and then you go to West Texas and it's even worse. So
yeah. So, and I haven't been to Bentonville yet, but I mean, I grew up riding in the Midwest. So Chicago, another great subway system where you would think about a 40-mile trip when it was really only 3 miles away.
Yes.
Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and then Colorado, I did a lot of just riding, skiing, hiking, that sort of thing. Big tall trees,
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
I
think
I had the
upstate New York too, right?
I haven't ridden upstate New York, but I did ride Wisconsin once, and man, I had no idea how pastoral Wisconsin is. It looks like the little images off of a kitchen towel.
For sure.
And the roads are so smooth, and that was really nice.
Yeah, yes. Wisconsin is gorgeous. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me today. I really, really appreciate it. Dear Diary Coffee Shop. What is the oat milk?
Bricco Blends.
Bricco Blends. And so deardiary.com and briccoblends.com. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Michelle. This was fun. Thanks for the conversation.
Absolutely. Anytime. Hope to see you soon. Thanks, Litsa.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again for listening to LoTech Tuesdays by LoTech and Wild. The mission and vision of Valdez Adventure Alliance is based in nature therapy. The events and resources provided allow people to find the satisfaction of self-accomplishment through effort, of climbing, of riding bikes, of hiking, of trail building, of immersing in nature. Our objective is to be a resource for people to find deep happiness and healthy outlets for themselves. Thank you for those who sponsor Valdez Adventure Alliance. IMBA, the International Mountain Biking Association, Access Fund, the American Alpine Club. We'd also like to thank the City of Valdez, Alaska, the Fat Mermaid, Bike Flights, Camp, Alyeska Pipeline, CVEA Community Foundation, Sterling, Loa Boots, Raven, Alaska, Athletic Brewing, Best Western, Valdez Avalanche Center, and The Prospector. Some 2021 event sponsors we'd like to shout out to also are Tiger Tail, Nix Wax, and Mountain Equipment. Thank you for listening and have a great day.